A long time ago, in a beautiful city called Babylon, there was a very powerful king named Darius. King Darius ruled over a big kingdom with many cities, villages, and people. He was a wise and strong ruler, but even a king like him needed help, and he had many helpers in his palace. One of these helpers was a man named Daniel. Daniel was different from everyone else. He wasn't like the other men in the palace. Daniel loved God with all his heart, and he always tried to do the right thing, no matter what. He was also very smart and kind, and the king trusted him very much. In fact, Daniel was so trusted that the king made him one of the top 3 leaders in the whole kingdom. Can you imagine being one of the most important people in the entire kingdom? Well, that's how important Daniel was. But not everyone was happy about this. Some of the other leaders in the kingdom, the men who worked for the king, didn't like Daniel at all. Why? Because they were jealous of him. They wanted to be the most important, and they didn't like how the king trusted Daniel so much. But even though they didn't like him, there was one thing they couldn't deny about Daniel: he was always honest and did the right thing. They couldn't find anything wrong with him. So, the jealous men thought, if we can't find anything wrong with Daniel, maybe we can trick the king into making a law that will get Daniel in trouble. They began to come up with a sneaky plan. They went to King Darius and said, "Oh, great king, you are so powerful and wonderful. We think you should make a special law. A law that says for the next 30 days, no one in the kingdom should pray to anyone except you. For 30 days, they should only pray to you, and if anyone prays to anyone else, they should be thrown into the lion's den." Now, imagine how the king must have felt when they said this. He must have felt very important. He was flattered and thought it was a good idea. "I am the greatest," he probably thought. So, without thinking too much, he agreed. He made a law that no one should pray to anyone but him for 30 days. This was a big mistake, though, because he didn't know it would cause trouble for his friend, Daniel. As soon as the law was made, the jealous men started watching Daniel. They knew that Daniel loved God and prayed to him every day. And sure enough, when Daniel heard about the new law, he didn't stop praying to God. Daniel knew that God was the most important person in his life, and he couldn't just stop praying to him because of a silly law. So, Daniel continued to pray to God, just like he always did. Daniel went to his room, opened the windows, and faced towards the city of Jerusalem, where God's temple was. He knelt down and prayed, thanking God for his love and asking for his help. Daniel wasn't afraid of the law because he trusted God. But the jealous men were watching closely. As soon as they saw Daniel praying to God, they rushed to the king. "King Darius," they cried, "did you not make a law that says no one can pray to anyone except you? Well, Daniel, your trusted helper, has been praying to his God." King Darius was shocked and very upset. He had no idea that Daniel had been tricked into breaking the law. He liked Daniel very much and didn't want to punish him. The king tried everything he could think of to save Daniel. He spent the whole day thinking, but the law was already made, and it couldn't be changed. Finally, the king had to face the truth. He said to Daniel, "I am so sorry, Daniel. I did not want this to happen, but because you prayed to your God, you must be thrown into the lion's den." Now, imagine how Daniel must have felt. He was about to be thrown into a dark, scary place with hungry lions. But Daniel didn't show fear. He knew that God was with him, and he trusted that God would protect him. The king said to Daniel, "I hope that your God, whom you serve so faithfully, will rescue you." So, Daniel was taken to the lion's den. The den was a huge pit, and inside, there were fierce, hungry lions. These lions were not friendly at all. They had sharp claws and teeth, and their roars were very loud and scary. But Daniel didn't worry. He knew that God was with him, and God would protect him. The soldiers pushed Daniel into the den, and the big stone door was rolled shut. The king went back to his palace, but he couldn't sleep that night. He was so worried about Daniel. He didn't eat, he didn't drink, and he couldn't even relax. He kept thinking about Daniel, wondering if God would save him. The night passed slowly. Can you imagine how dark and quiet it must have been in that lion's den? The lions were probably growling and prowling around. But Daniel, with his trust in God, didn't feel afraid. He knew that God was with him, and that was all that mattered. Early the next morning, as soon as the sun began to rise, King Darius hurried to the lion's den. He ran to the entrance, calling out, "Daniel! Daniel! Has your God saved you from the lions?" Then, to the king's surprise and joy, Daniel answered, "Yes, your majesty. My God sent his angel to shut the mouths of the lions. They didn't hurt me because I have done nothing wrong in God's eyes, and I haven't done anything wrong to you, your majesty." The king was so happy and amazed. He ordered the stone door to be rolled away, and Daniel was lifted out of the den. Not even a scratch was on him. The lions hadn't harmed him at all. The king was overjoyed. He knew that God had worked a miracle to protect Daniel. And so, the king made a new law for everyone in the kingdom. He said, "From now on, everyone must respect and honor Daniel's God, for he is the one true God. He has the power to rescue and save." The story of Daniel in the lion's den teaches us an important lesson. When we trust in God, He will take care of us, even when things seem scary. Just like Daniel, we might face hard situations. Maybe we'll be afraid or feel alone. But God is always with us, and we can trust Him to help us through any challenge. Imagine if you were in Daniel's shoes. How do you think you would feel knowing that there were hungry lions around you? Would you be scared? Would you still pray to God, even if it meant you might get into trouble? Daniel shows us what it means to trust God, even in the hardest times. He didn't know how God would protect him, but he believed that God would. And God did. So, let's remember that when we face difficult times, we can trust God just like Daniel did. We can pray, be brave, and know that God loves us and will help us. The story of Daniel teaches us that trusting God is the most important thing. When we trust in God, He can help us through anything. Daniel didn't let fear stop him from doing what was right. He prayed and trusted God, and God kept him safe. We should remember to pray, trust God, and do the right thing, no matter what happens.